Good morning, everyone. Good morning and
Good morning.
welcome. Welcome to House of Light. And as you know, this is Adrian Wynter, the co-founder and Learning Love teacher. And I'm Sally and I help behind the scenes at House of Light. So welcome to today's live stream. We're just going to give Facebook a chance to catch up. There's a little delay and we want people to be able to find the live stream. But Adrian's just going to share a little bit about what we're going to be diving into today in regards to learning love.
Well, I thought in the previous live streams we've been talking about little bits of the theory, different parts of the model of learning love. I thought it'd be interesting this week to show you some of the practices, because a lot of the learning love work is learning practices that we can use on a regular basis that bring about a deeper understanding of oneself and make communication, intimacy, difficult situations more present, more fulfilling, often with a better outcome. So I thought we'd look today at some of those practices and how it goes about, and thought I'd practice on you, if that's okay, Sally.
Absolutely. She says nervously.
Yes. She's not nervous at all.
Not at all, not at all. Diving deep into my personal issues publicly, not nervous at all.
Yes.
But all for the greater good, because you know your work really is powerful and very beautiful, and I think it's really wonderful that we're able to share it with everyone and get it out there. I'm just going to take a moment to share the live stream.
Sure.
So perhaps you could just start introducing, you know, a little bit about maybe the first practice or how you first started experiencing it.
Well, one of the difficulties when first working with this model is remembering to practice, because some of the practices are not how we've been brought up to live our lives. In fact, it's learning to re-listen to our body, re-listen to what's our emotional state, to what's going on for us. And in many ways, we were taught not to listen to that as we grew up, so that we could fit in with society, go along with our parents' agenda, our caregivers' agendas, our school teachers' agendas. We had to learn to shut down our feelings.
Yes.
And a lot of this work is about connecting with what those feelings are about and how they work for us.
Okay.
So often we start with when we're triggered, because the trigger, when we're triggered, and you know when you're triggered, an easy way to tell it is when there's a small incident happens, like your partner says something or forgets to put milk in your tea, a small thing that somebody else really would not be an issue, and you feel an over-exemplified emotional reaction to it. Whenever that happens, that's a sign that this is old emotion. This isn't really about what's happening now. It's stuff that's left over from the past. And that's a signal. It's like a little flag in my head. Like, okay, at this point, instead of going up and out, which is what normally we do, he's done that or she's done that. It's their fault.
Yeah, the blame game.
We'll come in and go, hang on, let's have a look at this. What is this for me? What's my experience? Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful.
So often it starts with the trigger.
Yes.
In time, for me, I scan my body quite on a regular basis anyway. I just, whenever I remember, and I don't need a trigger to remember, I just, any moment, waiting at a bus stop, waiting for the computer to run. And then especially if I feel something happening or if I'm stressed or triggered, then I'll remember that and come inside and have a look.
Have you found, through your experience, is there sort of like a common thread of triggers? Is there something that seems to be more common than something else?
Definitely a common thread for each of us. So we each have our patterns, and that's part of what, by practicing this, we learn. So in that sense, that's the beauty of this work in terms of getting to know who you are. And that really shifts life a lot, because when I didn't know who I was on that level, it felt like life was happening to me. It was like one thing would hit and then another, and then and I've got a puncture on the car, and now this bill's come in, and now I've had a row, and it all felt like it was kind of nothing to do with me, out of my control, but happening to me.
Yeah.
And now I have a better understanding of my themes, what triggers me, what are my insecurities, what are my, which sorts of things trigger me. I can better see that coming, and I don't feel like I'm being knocked around anymore. I feel like, obviously I'm not in control of my life, nobody is, but I feel more part of it. I have agency over how I experience life, so it doesn't have to be disaster all the time, and I don't find myself stuck in victim role or depressed or angry or wanting to escape. I'm more like, this could be a bit uncomfortable, but I'm comfortable to experience it because I know what it is.
Yeah. There's a lot of triggers around at this time, aren't there?
Yeah.
I think there's so many triggers, and I have done inner work on triggers before, but even I'm being like, and there's also a lot of suppression as well. There's because of the fear, it's still not safe to speak your truth in many ways. So
well, we each have areas where we've learnt not to be truthful about our feelings. So for instance, I grew up, it wasn't safe to be angry. We were not allowed, as children, we were not allowed to be angry. That was our parents' job. So what would it have been for you? In what way were you not encouraged to be authentic as a child?
Not to speak my feelings. Not to speak my feelings. It was like, no. It was definitely stiff upper lip, do as you're told, be a good girl, put on the front.
So maybe a bit more than not speak your feelings, don't have any, or don't show them.
Yes, showing them was, very difficult, because my parents, God love them, were very traditional and strict, and from a military background. So I know my father especially couldn't handle me showing emotion. Right. Even more so as a teenager with the rebel. But before that, I was very emotional, and it was difficult.
And you see, when we're children, we're so hardwired to want to connect with our caregivers, with our mum and dad. If you live with a family, mum and dad, the impulse to connect energetically is incredibly strong. So we will do anything to keep a connection there. And so if our parents don't welcome us having feelings, we learn to crush them, to push them away, push them into the shadows. And to do that, we learn strategies to not feel. So we become a role in the family, or
it's the role of the good girl, isn't it?
Right.
And that's the suppression of the feminine as well. That's one of the archetypes. So yes, I know that one.
And do you see that permeating today in your life, in your day-to-day life?
Not as much. Not as much, but I can see I was the people pleaser. Oh my goodness, if I would literally tie myself up in knots to try and keep everybody happy and say the right thing and not create any sort of ripple or confrontation. Confrontation, no. So I would do everything I could to smooth everything over, keep everybody happy, and just be tied up on the inside. So,
and it's exhausting, isn't it?
Oh my God, yes. But like I was saying, I have done quite a bit of inner work, so I'm aware of that pattern, but it still comes up because it's so ingrained, it's so ingrained in you. But when it does come up, I think, oh, there I go again. Hello, Sally.
Great.
And just, there's a certain acceptance of that is part of me, but it's not the real me.
So what would you say at the moment, this week, what's alive for you? You're saying there's a lot of triggers around at the moment. Which ones, what's alive for you at the moment? Alive
is, I think, oh gosh, Adrian. I think the front of being fine and in a really good place when actually I'm a bit wiped out. I'm really quite tired and just feeling a bit but the stoic Sally, the programmed and conditioned Sally, is very much it's all good.
So if you were to, so that's a perfect example of a strategy to not feel, is to put the brochure on, to hold it together.
Yeah.
And the front, that you can see from you, as you were talking about your parents, they've taught you that as well.
Yeah.
If you were to not do that, what would you have to feel? What would it feel like if you didn't keep that front up in the body?
Weak.
Whereabouts?
Plexus and heart.
Okay. And can you give me more description? How does it feel? Can you connect with that now?
Yeah, I can feel it.
So what does it feel like? Is it heavy, light? What colour is it?
It's heavy.
Shape?
It's really, it's like there's like this sort of pressure from down my heart into my plexus, and it makes me want to just curl over.
And that's a familiar feeling?
I don't always go there that often, but yeah, I
But I mean,
recognise
have you
it.
known it from more than recent times?
Oh, yeah.
It goes way back.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you breathe into that sensation in your body, just let it be there. Is it okay to let it be there? Okay, so just breathing into it, and notice there might be little judgments come up that want to push it away, like, oh, I shouldn't feel like this, or come on, let's get on with it, let's put the front on. If you notice those, just try and let those judgments go away, and the way to combat that is with curiosity. I'm curious, what does this actually feel like? Oh, where is it here, and is it moving around? Get really curious and try to meet it with acceptance and love, the feeling, even if it's uncomfortable. So breathing into that, what would you say is a predominant emotion connected to it?
Fear.
Okay.
Fear of letting
Okay.
people.
So breathe into the fear.
Letting people down.
Right, of letting people down.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're coming to the next thing. If you gave that fear, if you really breathe into it, let it be there, you welcome the fear in and give it a voice, what would its statement be? What's it saying?
I want to be heard, but I'm scared to be heard in case it creates problems or issues or
Okay.
confrontation.
So that thought, so there's the need to be heard, and is there a feeling of missing there, that you're not heard or haven't been heard?
I would say there would have been in the past, but I have come to peace with the fact that I wasn't heard for many years.
Okay. And the fear of being heard, this is the missing bit, I'm not being heard.
Okay.
And the fear of being heard, what's that? What's the fear saying? What will happen if they listen, if you're heard? That
it would create like a disagreement or disapproval or the wrong thing.
Okay. And disapproval, because you see, sometimes disapproval doesn't matter, does it? Certain people could disapprove of you and you might not give a fly.
Yeah.
But sometimes disapproval is just incredibly painful.
Yeah, from somebody that you love and that you...
So what part of the disapproval, because is it their opinion or is it withdrawal of love? Is it fear of retribution or punishment, or what would you say is there?
Fear of them, yeah, the withdrawal of love, or the not loving me because I've spoken up and they didn't like what I said. Yeah.
So there's that will for the connection, and this often happens with parents. Often it can be a misunderstanding as well. They just had a difficult day at work, but they're not able to connect with the children in a loving, listening way when the child wants attention, and you feel like that withdrawal of love, and it can be very painful.
Yeah.
That definitely leaves an imprint of, I won't do that again. We do anything we can to keep that connection.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is where we learn patterns that we carry through into adult life. as children, they're quite useful, really, to help us get through what is a difficult time.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
But as adults, it's the purpose of working with this is to understand it, because if I don't understand why I'm reacting the way I am, and I have no tools to process that and heal the trauma I'm carrying from my past, then it sabotages my relationships today. And all sorts of other, in many ways, in work, I may be sabotaging my ability to create what I want to create, or to start projects and finish projects I want to do because of beliefs that come from this time.
Yeah, because you're afraid to put something out there in case it brings up the disapproval or the rejection.
Yeah, or the punishment.
Withdrawal, punishment, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Well, yeah. What I find most fascinating actually is the result. That practicing this. So this practice that I've just taken you through, and this is something you can do for yourselves. Anytime you feel triggered, if you remember, the energy will be up and out when you're triggered. It's the impulse is always to blame or complain or judge. That's about somebody else. And this is also part of the ego wanting to strengthen itself, is to see two separate beings. We can't be separate. You're more separate if you blame them or judge them or complain about them. It's like, I wouldn't do that. They're behaving terribly. It helps my ego hold on. So this is kind of the opposite. It's coming inside and going, what is the experience of me being here now with this trigger, and allowing for all of the things that have happened to me up until this point? What does this feel like? And we start with the body, because it doesn't lie. It's just present. I can feel, my back's a slight twinge in my back, and I can feel the weight on my shoulders. And even if I can't feel anything there, which that can tell me I've gone into shock. And going into shock or freezing is another way we can learn to protect ourselves from uncomfortable feelings below. So when you go into shock, you don't feel your body at all. So, but even that can be observed. It's like, I can't feel my feet. I'm not here. So to get used to understanding what's happening when we're triggered allows us the choice then to respond instead of reacting. And if I'm not conscious of my emotional state when it takes over, I'm going to react. So that fear that you can feel, can you still connect with it now? Okay. So what we can do with that, if you pick up a pillow, you can, when triggered, so in this instance, you could say, okay, I can notice myself starting to put a front on. Something in the environment triggering me to put that front on, to not be fully in my integrity or authentic. I'm needing to hide something, and also it's that I don't have to feel what's inside. So I could say, there's the trigger. So I can then take a cushion to represent a younger part of myself. This is inner child work. And you take that on your lap, like, much as you would a child who's upset, who doesn't have any cuts or bruises to attend to, they're just upset. And you meet the pillow with that represents this child space, with acceptance and curiosity again. And you go, okay, I can feel you're disturbed. What's the disturbance about? And in this way, this helps us to really investigate what that feeling is for us. And this is a very good tool to begin with. This is very useful, but also a lot of people find it very difficult. Lots of people feel totally awkward holding a pillow. It's a Freudian thing. He came up with this, and in this work we use pillows. I can place that over there, and you can have a chat with a parent, an ex-partner, a boss. You can work out stuff. We use pillows to represent different parts of our psyche. Often when we've been through trauma, parts of our character split off, so we can use pillows to represent those, and it gives us the opportunity to observe what's going on there. And for our child state, we can definitely use it. And in the learning love work, if the child state is unconscious, what it will do is it'll be in the shadows, where I don't do that. I've got my stiff upper lip. Here I am, I don't feel any emotions. It will sneak up behind and it'll do this. And this is us in child state, right? And from here, my child state takes over my speaking and my acting, and that's when you've slammed the phone down or had a fight or just gone quiet and not stood up for yourself. So the trick is to notice when we go into this, when we start acting out like a child, and you'll see lots of people do it, full-grown adults, they act out like this. You see Trump, I mean, perfect.
Tantrums.
Tantrums, yeah. And to go, I'm in child state. Well, I'm just saying this isn't me. And which gives you a chance to go, hang on, okay, I'm going to bring this down here. And I get curious. What is this going on? What do you feel? There's the disturbance. What is it? And breathe into any emotions. So you breathe into the fear. If you keep breathing into the fear, if you can do that now, you breathe into the fear now, and see, is there anything below the fear?
Not that I can.
No. Okay.
No.
Because often one emotion will have others underneath. Very often with anger, somebody's regularly raging, outwardly angry. If they sit with that, you'll find underneath there's fear or grief that they can't express. They haven't been taught or they've been taught not to.
Yes.
A lot of men, it's just unthinkable to be frightened. You can't be frightened. You've got to hold it together for the family and be the strong one. So they get angry rather than facing the fear.
And that's where aggression comes in, because it's not actually aggression, it's from a different place.
Yeah. So the reaction happens because you don't understand where it's come from. And that the emotion isn't about now. The really strong emotions we have that are connected with a small trigger are all old wounds.
Old stuff.
Yeah. And it's our responsibility to parent those now that we're adult.
Yeah.
As children, it was our caregiver's responsibility to take care. But now we're adults, this is part of the work here, is to learn to take responsibility. And in doing this process, I'm basically self-parenting myself here. I'm going to say, okay, I'm really upset here. It can't be because she hasn't put milk in my tea. I'm going to work with this. And the more I do this, the more I take responsibility. And you can break that word down. It is response-able. It means I become able to respond to life rather than constantly reacting, which normally buys me into more and more difficulties.
Okay.
So how are you feeling now?
Very self-conscious, very hot under the collar, but it's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
Do you want to have a look at that?
Why not?
So you can feel the hot under the collar.
Oh, I'm roasting now. Yeah.
And the trigger is, and really look. So let's have a look at this. What's the trigger for that in as much detail as possible?
Being judged.
Okay, so, but to begin with right now, what's the trigger in this scenario here? What's triggered the hot under the collar?
Oh, being exposed. It feels,
being exposed.
Being
exposed.
By
the camera?
By the camera, by you,
talking.
By anybody and everybody that's going to see this now. Okay, so it's the thought of other people watching, it's me asking you questions, and it's being filmed. Because normally I'm in control.
There we go. Okay, so the control thing's there as well. So this is really worth looking at. You see, when we get triggered, sometimes the trigger's obvious while somebody just shouted at me. Yeah. But actually, when you pull it apart, you go, it was the look he gave me just before he shouted at me, or it wasn't that he shouted at me; it was that he shouted at me in front of two people that I love. Whatever it is. So it's really good. We start to observe this. What is it, in fact, that triggers me? And then, what's the physical feeling? So you hot under the collar. And what else? What else is going on for you?
Not really knowing quite what to say. And just feeling a bit...
Do you feel disassociation happening?
Yeah.
So
it's like, bye.
Leaving the body. Yes, yeah. And this is very common. And this, again, will be something we learn when we're little. When it gets too much, we go.
Yeah, that is something that I used to do as a kid. Just completely withdraw and shut down. And I remember my mother actually telling me once, as she told me as an adult, that as a child she could, ironically, you know, we had a difficult relationship, but she could see when, she said I would just completely withdraw. She said my eyes used to just glaze over and I would disappear. I would literally just disappear in front of her eyes.
Wow.
And, you know, I should have actually said, well, what happened or what was going on, but we didn't have that sort of open way to be able to talk. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. You know, I was a difficult child. I used to just shut off completely. So, yes, I am very used to just completely
So do you
pulling
notice times in day-to-day life now where that in some way doesn't serve you or gets in the way of relating? Or
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I find it very hard to speak, especially if it's over like a difficult subject or it's with somebody I love, or you need to have a conversation with a friend. It's really tough to get that, or to have that difficult conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can you connect with that now and feel, so there's a disturbance there, isn't there? And can you connect that with the pillow and use the cushion to represent the younger part of you, the little girl?
Sure what happened there. Hopefully you'll come back and join us when this live stream comes through. But I have to admit, I was a little bit relieved at the technical hitch after being put on the spot.
Good try.
Look, no hands. I did it without hands. So we're going to continue with our conversation about the practice of learning love, and I can't really remember where we were because I was in avoidance tactics, but I'm sure you can.
So we were just talking about, you can remember as a little girl disassociating, and you started to feel that feeling, the hot under the collar, and being judged or looked at and going out. So if you connect with the cushion to connect with that disturbance, what's the disturbance that makes you want to go? What does it feel like? What emotions there?
Oh, I just feel sick.
Okay, yeah. So sick in the stomach?
Sick in the stomach, yeah.
Nausea as well? Okay. And with the sickness and the nausea, what's the emotion?
It's fear, but there's a lot of emotion in the fear. Not like watching a horror movie or something like that, but there's a sickening, it's very emotional fear. Does that make sense?
Just very activated.
Yeah.
What does the fear say?
It's saying, get away.
Yeah. And what's going to happen if you don't get away?
I'm going to have to face it.
Right. Okay. So you talked earlier about your emotional state not really being welcome in your family home.
Yeah.
So to reparent this, you can now take this space, that feeling, and really let it know it is welcome.
Yeah.
You've just got these few moments. It could be just a few conscious breaths where you're going to welcome that feeling in. You're going to be curious, welcome it with unconditional love, and say, I'm here and I'm not doing anything else. I'm just going to breathe into this feeling and be present with it and welcome it in, which will be possibly an unusual thing to try and do. So then you're beginning to reset how this was for you, because these traumas are frozen in time back when we were young, and to re-meet them with the attention and the love that we didn't get at the time heals them. It allows us to feeling the emotion that wasn't felt at the time. You see, then you couldn't feel it as a little girl. It would have been too much to deal with, so you learn to disassociate. So, but now, and you may find you still disassociate now, as you were saying.
Yeah.
The difference is now you're a woman and you've got all the resources you've lived your life, you've travelled, all the things you've done in life that show you that you are no longer helpless to the caregivers. You're not stuck in that house because you can't move family and you can't fight them and you can't even, we were very helpless when we were little.
Yes.
We had no choice about that. But the big shift comes when we become adults. Now you can, and I would believe it's your responsibility now to reparent those spaces. So by holding that space for the disturbance, for the fear, and saying, okay, what would I have to feel if I don't disassociate? And then I'm going to be with that feeling. And if it's very uncomfortable, which some of this stuff can be really quite a challenge to be with, then you just do it for a couple of breaths, 2 or 3 breaths first time. But you keep coming back to this. So after a while you say, okay, I'm just going to sit with this for 5 minutes, which might seem a very long time to begin with. It's like going to the gym. You keep going, and your capacity to feel this emotion and to be okay with it being there, to be okay with being aware of it rather than pushing it into the shadows, grows. And this then allows you to be present in situations that before you would have disassociated.
Yes.
I would have gone into shock. My favourite used to be actually go into shock. It's quite similar to disassociation. I just wouldn't have anything to say, and days later I'd be like, what happened?
Yeah. Gosh. So I don't know what to say now.
Left you in that place, It's okay. Well, I've asked you to sit in that place, and so it's not. This isn't about fixing something. It's not a practice to fix it so then you can get on with your conversation. It's a practice we do again and again and again over time. It's not a quick fix. It's not a trick that will enable you to get up and talk in front of crowds of people confidently. In time, for sure, it will be. I can now be present and do things in situations I would have gone nowhere near years ago. But it takes time, and it's practicing being with this stuff so that you become familiar with it.
Yes, yeah.
And it unfolds and unwraps, and parts of my character that I really didn't want to look at, they now become my friends. It's like, here's this insecurity again. Let's see what it's feeling like today. Yeah.
Fabulous. It's a way of deepening your experience of life, isn't it? Because you can actually stay engaged
that's right.
in everything instead of like running away from it, or the shock, or ignoring it, or denying it, or the blame game.
Yeah. and it makes an enormous difference to intimacy. And I don't just mean with your partners, but intimacy with anyone you relate to. Because if we're reacting and we're not able to be in touch with these strong feelings, then we put on the front all the time, in the bank, in the grocery shop, and meet somebody on the street. Hi, how are you? And we do all this. We don't even have a choice to, whereas when I'm comfortable with being with my emotions, I have the choice, if I wish to be a little bit deeper. I can actually be intimate with someone. I can connect with them. Even if I'm in a confrontation with them, I can deal with my child space, so I can be present. Whereas before I wouldn't be present. I would either explode or I'd go into shock. But either way, there wouldn't be a connection. And certainly in intimate relating with our partners, it makes a huge difference if each person is capable of meeting their own feelings and disturbances and owning them.
So in the personal sessions that you do and the retreats that you do you must do like this, like role plays, or the work with
sometimes role play comes into it, and we do open sharing where we practice some of what I've been doing with you today and other bits, so that it's to help people get to see how that works and remind them and go. So we cover some of it in the theory, but it's really important to practice this on a physical level. And we have exercises where you get to move backwards and forwards with somebody else representing a person or a situation or
Yeah.
something that's difficult in your life, and you get to feel into your body and see what does it feel like to move closer or further apart, to really listen, to really listen to what's going on. Whereas in our normal day life, people say, oh, it's so distracting, but we put those distractions there. We keep them, a catalogue of them. What am I going to do to not feel this?
Yes.
So with the retreats, in a retreat particularly, it's great because you have the time and space to calm and really start to listen. And that ability to listen to my body, to what's happening, to my emotional state, I can then take out into my normal life and use it. So it actually transforms how you live.
Because it isn't, it's like you were saying earlier, that it's all well and good doing the theory and knowing the theory, but actually using that practice, is completely...
It's another thing.
It's another
and
level.
The theory will bounce off the resistance.
Yes.
Doesn't matter how good the theory is, it will meet a lot of resistance, because we've learned in your case, you've learned not to have emotions at all.
Yes, yeah.
So when you're asked to visit the emotions, it takes some time. So this is why we really take time on the retreats to a little bit of theory and then guided meditations to help you see where that theory connects for yourself in your life, and then experiential exercises which embodies what we're talking about, embodies the practices. That way when you're back in the office or with your family and you feel a trigger happening, you're more chance of remembering and catching it and going, I'm triggered, because you've experienced that on the retreat.
How I'm going blank again, I'm still
It's okay. Just breathe into it.
I was just going to say, we have got some people watching. If anyone would like to ask Adrian questions.
Does anybody feel triggered?
And anybody feel triggered? Anybody like to ask Adrian a question? Which is a wonderful avoidance tactic for me.
Yes, very nicely done, Sally. I think it didn't go unnoticed.
So, hi Margaret, hi Dale. I think I saw Marie and Claire watching earlier as well. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
So if people want to work with you, they just get in touch with you
through the House of Light.
Through House of Light
phone
website.
Numbers there.
And it's a shame, due to the present circumstances, there isn't a retreat on as such.
That's right. Yeah. I might be able to start running with 9 participants soon. We just got to see how the restrictions go at the moment. And also you can look on the Learning Love Institute website, which is Christian and Ananda and Amana. They created the model, and they run. Also their retreats are a bit difficult to run at the moment, but they've got a lot of material, and on the website they do a quarterly letter with on one theme or another of this work. So that's another resource you can look at, and they've they've published many books on this subject, which are great.
Just check that out. That's Marissa Sage just saying eye opener. Yes. Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to share or to?
No, I think
We're good.
This is something else you'd like to look at.
No, thank you.
You've done great, Sally.
Thank you.
You've done great.
No, it's really interesting, facing yourself and meeting yourself, and like I said,
and it's not easy. It's
no, especially with an audience.
Yeah. Well, no, really, it's a very big part.
But no, I'm really passionate about helping you get your work as Learning Love out there.
I so appreciate.
And we've got the YouTube channel as well. So all the live streams that Adrian has done are now on our YouTube channel as well, House of Light Orgiva. So there's plenty of resources, and I'm sure we'd be delighted to hear from you if you'd like to reach out. Right. Any questions? My email's there, my phone number's there. And so I'm happy to answer any queries people have. Okay. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally.
And thank you everyone that came on to join us. I'm sending you lots of love.
Bye.